Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Executive Career Chat here, powered by Chameleon Resumes. We are talking about how to navigate the legal executive job market training session. My guest here today is Hope Jamison with Major Lindsey Africa. So, um, Hope, so happy you're
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. In the spirit of networking, we are Cornell buddies and did not know each other in school, but met in alumni events after the fact, which is, all that promotions for networking with your fellow college alumni. Um, Tell us a little bit about you, and you're also a repeater. You were on our show 2 years ago, so I'm excited to have you back to really get an essence of what's going on in the executive legal market. And tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll jump right into the questions.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I will spare a lot about me so that we can really jump into the exciting part of this, and that's sharing about the
Oh,
legal
you are an
market.
exciting part.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is my going in entering my fourth year with Major Lindsey in Africa. I was 10 years in higher ed administration. I started out as a recruiter for Cornell Law School. Go Big Red again. And I'm just really excited. I went to law school, never quite knew that I wouldn't just be practicing law. I always knew I would do something different, but I'm really excited because my career journey has been one of seeing people apply to law school, and then later when I was an assistant dean at a standalone nonprofit school down here in Atlanta, I help people get through law school. And so this part of my career is really seeing uh, adults, them in their careers really being able to thrive. So it's nice to take that background, understanding the unspoken rules of the culture and the profession, and really help what we do it. And I think what recruiters do is just help people find the next best version of themselves, and that's in their jobs. They've invested a lot. They've gone to law school, they work in this specialized space, and so we really help them move on and grow in their career.
I love it, and that's why I'm so excited that you're here. We are going to be talking about what you're seeing in the, general counsel, chief legal officer, partner level, all of that executive level legal space is, whether it's in the law firms or in corporations. That's what we're going to talk about here today. Um, let's start with just a general question. What are you seeing as a state of the market, whether you answer as like specifically for the legal professional or just in general as a market that's going to be hiring legal professionals.
Absolutely. So I think we always start with the market because it's all of this is market driven, and it doesn't, as you said, there's never not going to be hiring, but understanding where we are in the market can really help those even clients that are looking to hire really have a sense of what the talent pool is, and where they have to become strategic in hiring, and those looking to land their next job where the opportunities are. So what we're seeing at MLA, we are doing well. We're seeing that there's hiring going on, and there are a lot of people looking to move. There is some what we call the great hesitation. People are making sure that their next move is their best move, and employers are making sure that they take their time to hire the right person for the role. And we are seeing just general in our practice areas at Major Lindsey in Africa, because we work with interim talent, the law firm space, and then in-house. We're seeing in the in-house space that the hiring has spiked in private equity, real estate, healthcare, regulatory compliance. Those roles are a lot of the roles that we're seeing where our clients are coming to us and helping us. We're being thought partners with them and helping them be creative and fill those roles. And even in our interim space, for interim, which is for fractional employment, we are global. We're seeing that different geographies have different hiring trends. So, for instance, in Boston, there have been spikes in corporate services, life sciences, securities. Here in Atlanta, where I sit, some of our interim hiring has been in the corporate, employment and tech transaction space. We go as far as to Chicago, the Midwest, compliance roles, life sciences, and corporate M&A have
Mhm.
really picked up. So that we'll spend more time, but that will give just a sense of the legal market and landscape. And it's all about tariffs, right? They're the word, because that's creating opportunity for people
Right.
to work, but also kind of give a sense. And because what that does is that allows people to understand what economic pressures there are out there. You don't bend to them, but it can help you tailor your approach and understand why some roles may exist, they're delayed or they're being restructured, and also help you fine tune your strategy for your next role.
Regardless of what one thinks about, the tariffs
Mhm.
and that kind of and that decision,
Mhm.
I agree with you that, it creates opportunity and it closes opportunity. If we can dig in a little deeper, where are some of the um, opportunities growing as a result of them, whether it's a geographic, slant or whether it's specific industries, and where do you see it contracting opportunities? Again, however you want to define that.
Absolutely. Well, if I could start with the buzzword AI, right? That is really, I mean, CBS Sunday Morning is talking about, is AI going to take our jobs? And they did a section, but I say AI is really a skill. We were all Chat GPT and we all heard the hard tells, but we're in a space now where AI is really creating an opportunity. And if I can use my opinion, it's going to be like the grocery store. It's never going to replace human work, right? But if we can effectuate a process or have a computer help out, that's what we're seeing. So we're seeing employees that are looking to navigate the world or choose their next job. They're being very strategic about how they have a hand in AI reshaping
Hmm.
their current culture, how they're piloting programs. So if there's a way to highlight on your resume that you have used AI to pilot programs, or we've seen return on investments, or I've implemented this to make my discovery process or
Hmm.
contract management life cycle
Hmm.
improve. That's a way that we're seeing how things are changing and evolving landscape, but it's also creating opportunity. I hope that answers your question with
That was
AI.
definitely a point we wanted to talk about in terms of
Mhm.
like skill sets that are now being in demand. And AI absolutely, and it's funny because I can literally in the same scroll session, whether it's
Mhm.
on LinkedIn or news apps or whatever the case may be, I can read that, AI is creating opportunity. And then just this morning, even reading that, a lot of programs that are being launched by companies. Like I think the person, it was a coach, IT coach, his IT leadership coach, his name's Joe Topinka, posted this morning. I think it was like 95% of projects are not yielding results. AI projects are not yielding results. So I feel like there's this push and pull. They want it, but then how do we make it work? How do we, so I think it's definitely creating opportunity. I think it's not necessarily linear growth for most organizations. And everything you mentioned about learning it, learning how to pilot it, use it for piloting programs and streamlining operations and whatnot is absolutely pertinent. What I was, what I also want to hear your insights on is the climate that we're in. AI is creating opportunity, but it's also reducing opportunity, right? The tariffs are creating opportunity, reducing opportunity. Where do you see um, for the executive legal professional, where do you see that opportunity happening and where do you see it contracting? Whether it's defined by geography or, discipline or health, industries, where do you see the growth and where do you see the contraction?
Well, I guess because in the innovative space, private equity is definitely,
Hmm.
because of where we are with the regulatory landscape and the EU Act with AI. Yeah, things are changing. As far as contracting, I'm not quite so sure, right? I don't
Hmm.
want to get ahead of myself, but in the sense that, let's see, how do I answer that? There's regulation. I guess maybe that's why we're here. Maybe that's just the opportunity for um, us to go, where the pockets are, right? So if,
Yeah.
if it's going to impact life sciences, that could be an opportunity, or as you said, based on that organization, if they are kind of like anti-AI, it's not going to do that. I mean, banking and regulatory, we're seeing the upticks there. I don't think AI is impacting that.
Mhm.
Those jobs seem to be really in demand,
Right.
especially in the corporate, yeah, the corporate
Mm.
space. I mean, we're
Are there
seeing, yeah.
specific regions that maybe,
Mhm.
banking is, I don't know if that's like a North Carolina thing or
Yes,
in a certain
yes.
area, like where do you is how would you say it's affecting either across the US regionally or in specific industries?
Absolutely. So, like for instance, in Charlotte, we're seeing hot rolls, or like banking and commercial transactions are really on the uptick. And that is a banking space, right? You've got Bank of
Hmm.
America, Wells Fargo. Charlotte is probably the closest as far as the New York when it comes to financial services that we
Yeah,
have in
definitely
the
financial
South.
hub there.
So that's kind of what we're seeing. And as I mentioned earlier, in Atlanta, we are seeing a lot of tech transactions. We've had Google move here, and so that's kind of with the businesses coming here, then the legal work comes. So most
Hmm.
recently, we've started to see, we even get calls in from firms, hey, we need somebody that can do IP and M&A work. Or
Hmm.
we're seeing like kind of these corporate and tech moves that kind
Hmm.
of balance where the economy, or it's shaped by who the employers are.
Right. The when you are looking for candidates, like
Mhm.
I think it's clear, it could be obvious like what skills you're looking for. And then, but if you can outline some of those, and then even sharing maybe what could be some red flags that when candidates either behave a certain way or don't have something or do have something that doesn't mean they can't get hired. It just means that maybe a third party recruiter, isn't going to be necessarily be able to place them, which I want to just preface. I think everyone here is astute enough to know that, people like Hope, your job is not to play, your job is not to find people candidate, find people jobs. Your job
Yes,
is to
yes,
find specific skill sets that is represented in talent that your company clients that are paying you want to hire. So just know that when you reach out to her, just that's the key there. But what are you looking for to be able to present someone to a company, which is going to be different being presented as a third party recruiter candidate versus going in through the other ways of getting hired?
absolutely. And I always want to start with self-awareness, because that candidate that is self-aware, I mean, I have to reach out to top talent all the time, and sometimes they're just saying, "I'm not looking for a job. I'm happy where I am," or "Okay, I know that I'm ready in some way in my life space to make a change or to grow. And so this opportunity aligns with where I want to go." And not to get into the secret of the sauce, because this is not a plug, but in the roles that we help fill, we always send a position description and it lines
Mhm.
out, right? It's kind of like this is what we're looking for, right? Do you fit? And so if somebody can read that and really say, let's go to that word you use, skills, if they really align and they see
Mhm.
their personality and what their current career goals are,
Right,
those are the good candidates. And those are the ones who we screen, and that they move and then they go and talk to the clients. Those
right.
are the really ones that do well. The red flags, I would say, are the people that may not be engaged if they're not really ready to take the process seriously. And that's just in general. They're not really looking. And so if you're just trying to just fill your time or see how much something cost, I think am I going to be able to get a pay raise, or what is my salary? That type of can't, going to be, or what it could be, that type of candidate shows up a little differently than the one that says, I'm ready to grow in my career. Like, or I'm in the life space now. My children are out, or my aging parents, I have them in a good enough space where I can really focus on, I want to become a deputy general counsel, or I want to take on this leadership opportunity,
Mhm.
or this particular role. It may be a non-linear step, but it will help me get closer to where I want to advance, if that's a general counsel or a chief
Hmm.
legal officer or head of compliance. So I hope it's not running on, but it's really self-awareness of this is what's next and best for me and the opportunity aligned with that.
And I think I to speak to self-awareness, when we were preparing for this, you mentioned that generally speaking, and it isn't every company, obviously, but the trend is that companies are running more lean. And so it's being self-aware that you're able to operate in that type of environment. And
Mhm.
what are some of the traits that you're looking for in someone to demonstrate that they're going to be able to work in a situation like that? Especially if they
Absolutely.
might be coming from something bigger, right? Like, it doesn't mean
Absolutely.
somebody can't do it, but they have to sell themselves in such a way that they can now do something that's a bit more lean, or take something bigger and make it more lean. Like, what are some of
Absolutely.
the green lights versus the red flags? Like, what are you looking for?
Absolutely. And to your point about crafting the storytelling, we always tell our clients if somebody can't give you detail and specifics, that's always a red flag.
You know what? And I think that's any discipline, right? Like, if you
Yes,
can't speak to
yes,
the details of the deals, some of the
yes.
granularity of like the workings of how things came to be, and yes, you're delegating, but you need to that when you can know all of the details or
Mhm,
good pieces of them,
mhm,
it shows that you delegate and communicate well with your team.
mhm.
Even if you are
Yes,
not physically doing it and you're overseeing it, if you're so out of touch of the process, you're not going to be able to speak to the details, which then
absolutely.
subliminally sends a message you're not in touch with your team and
Absolutely.
they're not informing you well. So,
Ab-
anyway,
Absolutely.
I should let you speak. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I mean, a part of this is that people see how amazing you are, right?
Oh, you're
And
awesome.
we work together in tandem. I mean, that makes the world better. But I mean, to your point, and it's always how they answer. Back to your point about the art of storytelling and crafting the narrative. If somebody really says they're a team player, but then when I go and ask them what's the strength or weakness and they take all the credit, right? The mismatch is not there, right? So it's just not self-awareness, but it's really your ability to make sure that your narrative is consistent. And to your point, when they're leader legal teams, right? And
Hmm.
if you're saying, I'm looking for this deputy, I don't want to get to an acronym and say DGC role, but this deputy general counsel role, or I want to go to this larger Fortune 500 company. If I know that they want leaner legal teams now, I have to really show up to the recruiter or present myself on LinkedIn or when I'm on my resume saying that I can swim outside my lane. Now you can't use that language, but what have you done in your career experience? And that goes to the details. What examples have it said where you've been able to take on other roles or other responsibilities and it had a positive impact?
Hmm.
And how am I exercising my muscle in leadership or other substantive areas of the law
Hmm.
that will really work well when I'm in an in-house space because that's what we're doing. We're a smaller team. We're not the law firm litigation city, but we all have to kind of have this collective brain trust
Hmm.
that's going to help our company show in its bottom line. And so those people that show up and are able to really demonstrate that and really how the moves on their resume, job hopper or not, how they really put them in that space, those are the candidates that succeed. And it's not a cockiness, there's just a confidence and all of my career has been preparation for
Right.
this type of role. If not this role, something similar
Hmm.
and this is what I'm doing in my current space, this is what I've done. And the right client, we help them see that. They kind of see, okay, this is what you're looking at. And the buzzword is gravitas, but a lot of people are looking for leaders, Lisa. And
Right. No, I mean that's what's needed. I mean, are you seeing the job search taking longer? Are you seeing the decision process taking longer? Like, with like a lot of this with hesitation, right? Uncertainty comes hesitation. Like, what are you seeing there?
yes, absolutely. I talked about the great hesitation. It's not because people are uncertain. But Lisa, I'm sure you understand when you work with top talent, they're just not applying for a job. And this is not just I'm getting Thai for dinner tonight. I mean, this is a life-changing decision like going to law school. So the top talent candidate pool they're more than likely well compensated. They've been very intentional about what they're doing in their
Hmm.
job. So they're not just jumping at anything. So to have them think about an opportunity, they're going to take some time too. And then
Right.
from the client side, they want to make sure that when this person comes in, number one, they're going to be able to do what they said they can do. But that culture word, that being able to fit with the team is big. And we know that you can't tell that from a 30-minute screening interview. You can't take on that from even an hour, but with the balance of that, seeing their resume and
Hmm.
really just sometimes saying this is what we want and partnering with search recruiters like ourselves, you can really make a better informed decision. But we always say the client, this is your decision, right? But
Right.
we're kind of like the yellow brick road. We'll help you get all of these great people and see what's next and best for you. So there is a good slowness, I would say, but you never want to rush any process. And I say that for a candidate. If they're trying to put you in the seat,
Right.
say, okay, well, what's going on here? Why is there a haste? I could get it if somebody left, but what is this going to mean for me? And then the same thing, the client, you want to take your time and really court that candidate strategically.
You use the phrase that's sometimes a touchy phrase for people, the phrase job hopper before.
Yes.
And is there more consideration given to, because there's a lot of great talent that is currently not working, and but the need for what, lawyers do is still there, right? So, um, do you see a push or at least an increase in contract consulting type of roles being done as a stopgap or, consulting to hire? And then how does somebody handle that like on an interview? Because it's not a bad thing. Like part of my recruiting experience is running a consulting desk. And I always thought that consultants sometimes are some of the best people out there because they have to start with no training, often not a lot of support because everybody who is a full-time person is kind of looking at them with a side eye, like, are you going to take my job? And they still have to get results,
Mhm.
and they don't interview because they committed to like a 12-month assignment or a 7-month assignment, and then that ends. And then what do? They take another consulting role. So it becomes like a little
Mhm.
bit of a rut. But they're
Mhm.
often some of the really talented people that just don't sell themselves well.
Yeah.
But are you seeing like any rise in that, or like how do you handle it or look at it from your angle? Like how's it?
Absolutely. Great question. Yeah, so our interim talent pool is really booming here at MLA, and how they measure
All
it
right, that's
is there's a
good.
lot of
Good. The
but they're
work is still
reaching,
there, right?
and the
The
work
work is
is
still
still there.
there.
And employers say, hey, well, in these times, maybe it's better to have someone come in and do these roles until we figure where we are as a business. So it
Yeah.
makes sense, and there's a market for that. And for the
Yeah.
people that do it, Lisa, they're great. They're very smart. I mean, these are
Yeah.
people that have been in the Fortune 500 companies. And the way that they land the job is they do good work when they're there. So they're at our interim day, but they have a why, right? Is it your mommy narrative, right? Is it you
Right.
had to um, you had to help aging parents.
Yeah.
It's all about how you explain that in the interview, and we do tell people if they do find themselves laid out when laid off, excuse me, if you step into interim work, it
Hmm.
is a different type of work, and but if you know that that's for you, then you'll do it. I mean, there's one lady I think she was hired by our intern practice, and
Right.
she would stack it 9 months a year so she could have her summers with her children.
Hmm.
So as long as you can sell that narrative and people buy it, it works.
Hmm.
So I kind of help people as a thought partner with our clients look at it two ways, right? Back to
Hmm.
the why. Why did they move? Why are these moves? But if you can explain why you moved and what opportunities were presented when you did quote unquote job hop, I think
Hmm.
that helps you better. But then, we talked about earlier in our prep session, Lisa, we're never in a world of black and white. How do you balance that, right? So how does that candidate then show that they're loyal to something, right? Because
Hmm.
what you don't want is somebody to hire and say, oh, you're going to only be here a year, right? So how are you able to balance your narrative about loyalty in addition to why you made these moves? Did you
Right.
see this here? And what's compelling? And that goes to how well you tell it, but also the authenticity will show through, right?
Hmm.
And what you've done and what you've demonstrated on those platforms. So I never rule it. You never know. There's no perfect candidate, but it's just the ability of that person to showcase why they did what they did and for that time. Um,
Right.
Sometimes you don't want it to come like I just had to take a job, but be able to say that.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it's about telling the story. I
Hmm.
mean, there's a few people in the chat that are,
I saw that.
someone asks, is taking interim work then a resume hit? Look, to be blunt, there's always going to be,
Hmm.
if I can be blunt, idiots that are going to view that as a resume hit, right?
Yes,
If
yes.
that's what they're going to judge you on, then what are you
Mhm.
supposed to do? You still need to pay the bills, right? There's going to be people who think it's amazing and you're flexible and your ego's at the door and you just, you do the work that's before you and that is awesome. So every move is going to have a series of judgment, everything, even the ones that are positive appearing,
Mhm.
right? Because frankly, if people think that if you have this perfectly upwardly linear background, and as a result, people make assumptions with that you now need to live up to, that's not pleasant either. So, I think the key is to do a frank analysis of what is going to be viewed out there, and then counter it all, right? It's like it's a business. This is a business situation that happens to be your job search. So
And
you
I
need to
love
do
what
the
you
SWOT
said.
analysis, right? What's the strengths, the weakness? Look, what are all the perceptions? And then how do you go to market countering it
Hmm.
and finding the people that appreciate what you do and
And I
how you do
agree.
it.
I agree. Sometimes you have to say, I had to take a job, right? And
Yeah. And
then
there's no shame in
what
that.
that's right. And but what did you do to balance that? Did you serve on some leadership boards? Did you do
Right.
committee work? If you're able to kind of highlight and demonstrate that, because you're right. I would never tell someone not to take an interim role because if they have bills to be paid, that's just counter. That's not good for anyone. And you
No.
you never know. Some interim roles are for a designated time, and some people really like that. They're like, I can just go here. I know what my lifeline is here. I don't have to really build and get this capital and buy-in. I can just go here and do my job. And then for the right person, that may turn into something permanent. But it's
Yeah.
really to your point about being strategic and being able to know what your personal goals are. I need to pay the bills. Something on my resume is better unless you have just something that you know is going to be come into fruition in the permanent side. But you
Right.
just have to be strategic about that.
No, and to your point about the strategy piece, like
Mhm.
um, you know, third party recruiters like yourself, right?
Yes,
Only account for 10 to 15% of hires, right? I don't know how many candidates you talk to in a year.
yes,
You tell me if you think I'm right or wrong, but like I'm
mhm,
going to guess you may place 5% of them
that's true.
on a high side, right?
I did
So,
a I did statistics on a recent search.
mhm.
I think who made it to the second round was 1%.
So there you go, right? So the thing is 60 to 65% of hires happen through networking.
Yes, yes.
No third party recruiter that with a fee involved, right? Where you're
Mhm,
getting paid to place somebody. So if you do need to take a contract role,
mhm,
right, which there's no shame in it at all,
yes.
you may have to consider a different way of marketing yourself. Okay, so maybe somebody like you won't place that candidate because a
Mhm,
company just pragmatically will not pay a fee typically. Typically, I say typically because there's always exceptions to every rule. You
yes.
know, you may not be able to get placed by a third party recruiter because you have a
Mhm,
gap or you have a contract gig or, whatever the case may be. But again, that's only 10 to 15% of how hires happen. So go focus on the way that you're going to get hired, which is through people and you don't have a fee attached to you. So it's about looking at the process as a way of how is it going to work as opposed to constantly finding the ways it won't work. Because listen, if we look hard, you don't even have to look that hard. We're always going to find 50 ways it's not going to work, right?
that's right.
But we have to look at how it can work,
Mhm,
which actually, like, if focusing on how it can work, like what are some ways that whether it's you or an MLA process or whatever, how do you find people? Like that's sort of a base. Everybody's like, how can I be findable? How can I get more discoverable?
I
How do you
like
find
that.
people? Which is
I
not
like
for everyone here, not going to be the end all be all way of people finding people, of recruiters
it.
finding people. This is just how Hope finds people.
Yeah, you can get creative, right? And surgical. I mean, we live in this wonderful world where LinkedIn exists. I join alumni networks. People have their networks. I don't think anything is going to just ever replace good old-fashioned networking, meeting people, getting out there. And we live in the world where you can Google people and send them an email. So that's kind of how, and there's something to be said for reputation, Lisa. When I do
Hmm.
more partner work, if you're just really well known in your field and somebody wants you, they'll say, hey, your reputation speaks. Hope, will you call them and just say, hey, when it came to mind for the top lawyers to do this specialized work, you're one of the top five in Atlanta. I know you're not looking to move, but I just wanted you to know you're on on the radar,
You're on the
right?
radar.
Yes, you're on the radar. So those are the way. And I think we talked about other earlier when we were prepping, Lisa, that you want to just network strategically, right?
Hmm. So
I
what is
think
that
that.
in
Mhm.
a very detailed way? What does that look like? We hear that, but what does that look
Yeah.
like?
Oh, I gave a buzzword. Use
It's all good.
use use your network to learn, not lean, right? A lot of times if you're looking, I need a new job, we'll call and say you know something. But no, right? What do you know about insights? What career mistakes? What do your mentors or those that you view successful in your network? What would they say about where you are just in your life space and what you need to do next for your career?
Hmm.
And that's how you do it, right? If it's just going to an event where there are other recruiters there, what can you learn about the market? And when we get into just hiring trends or just when I get to a place, what it's going to be like. I just heard my friend went to something and she learned about the glass cliff, right? And so what do recruiters know about that? Because you can, that will kind of help inform what your next job is if you're having to come in and really shake up changes, what the long-term impact is. But
Hmm.
if you talk to someone that knows what the glass cliff is, at least you can go in it informed and say, okay, well, this may not be my forever job,
Right.
but this job will give me this opportunity to drive strategy, to drive change, so that for my next invest, I really have a strong, compelling narrative about this is what I did on this platform, and this is why, and these were the success metrics.
I have a question for you that we did not prep for. So,
Okay.
in terms of looking for talent, are you ever speaking to non-legal execs? How often do you do that? If you do, or is it mostly legal that you're talking to?
I would say mostly legal because but that doesn't mean opportunities can't come from that, but we solely do legal placements, right?
Right.
So I hate to sound so narrow-minded,
It's
but my
okay. It's all
focus,
right.
I just deal with a lot of lawyers.
Well,
But
the third party piece too, like as a third
yes,
party recruiter, that's a big piece
yes,
of it too, so
yes,
but I was just interested because we will train clients from the other, 60 to
mhm,
65% of our hires happen being networking. It's
yes,
not just talking to other lawyers,
mhm,
but it's also talking to CFOs, CMOs, COOs, because if they're sitting around a table and there's an opening,
yes,
they're
and
all going to refer who they know as a lawyer, right? So
yes,
it sounds a little simplistic, but that is kind of how some things happen before it goes to a search firm or even as
that's
there is an
true.
internal function looking for executives too. So we always strive for or teach people how to do like how to have a multidisciplinary network and not just their discipline.
I
Um,
agree.
so but I just was curious just how, if that's a tool, on a third party recruiter base, because being found through networking is different than being found by somebody like you. And that's
Yes, yes.
why I think it's important for everybody to realize that.
Mhm.
But you mentioned, you know, corporate alumni recruiting, like people who used to
Yes,
work at X, college
yes,
alumni, right? That's how we found each other.
yes.
I think all of that, it's funny with all of this technological development.
Mhm.
it's amazing how sometimes like the basic old school stuff works. And it doesn't have to be that deep.
It'll never get away. I mean, I'm working on a search now, and it came because my colleague had a reputation for being the one, and if I can be, appropriately transparent, right? This was something that could have been a non-legal role, which was kind of a one-off for us. But we're going with the lawyer, but it was
Hmm.
all about reputation, and
Hmm.
they just worked, leaned on their network. We heard you do this well, come do it. And that there's a lot to be said. People, I guess let me not dance around it. You told me I can be frank sometimes. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
trust and credibility are everything.
Right.
And you can look at me, you can see me online, but if somebody knows me and I value them, or if somebody has met me, that just doesn't get away from that good old fashioned building rapport, building trust and credibility, because business relationships, they're all built on that. And so the more that you can go out and craft that and create that, you will be successful in
Which
your
is the
career.
point you just that I want you to, if you can expand upon, like, how do you create demand for yourself? Like I think that sometimes people think that like, oh, they'll see my work and see that I'm great.
Mhm.
And that maybe works in our younger years because we're
Mhm.
outworking everybody and that shines. But once you start getting to the top, guess what? We're all a bunch of outworkers,
Mhm.
So like our work doesn't shine anymore because we're amongst everyone who's great,
Mhm.
or at least A-level player, all those terms that I sometimes hate, but they exist, right? So,
That makes sense.
but when you're at the
Mhm.
top, how do you create demand for yourself when you're amongst other fellow A-level players?
That makes sense. Kind of like they say fate is when preparation meets opportunity.
Hmm.
So I think it's twofold. It's a two-way. It's being intentional about where your current platform is, making sure that you are really thriving and shining in that role.
Hmm.
And why that creates opportunity is there's always need, and there's competition, and people say, oh, well, I want this. There's FOMO, the young kids talk about. I'm dating myself, they are the young kids. But when people see people thriving, they want that. And so if your light is shining, to use that analogy, and be, they're going to come over here, Lisa. We want this here. And I think that is how top execs, in addition to being well credentialed, um, and then being able to have the talent and experience, that's really what props someone up to get that, those really coveted roles.
Right,
They've got the credentials, but their talent and experience, they just become the trifecta, right? And it's really just showing up, right? Other people, it's not just me knowing who Lisa is, but Lisa's network being able to say Lisa's great.
right.
Though those are the way. And is that I tell people that are junior in their career and they're saying most decisions about your career are made when you're not in the room.
Right. And you ideally want to try to have people who can speak to you, and
Mhm.
then, it may sound self-serving, but then you're going to sometimes have people who aren't going to be
Mhm.
there to speak to you.
Mhm.
And
Yes. Yes.
that's when you need the branding to do so, like
Yes.
that the branding
Yes.
needs to look at it,
Yes.
look the part.
But to the extent, as you said, but to the extent that you look the part every day, to the extent that your LinkedIn says that, to the extent that when people meet you in person or you're doing speaking engagements, or you're showing up in whatever
You look like your
volunteer space
picture.
it is. Yes, right. All of that mattered. That was my
It really
post.
does matter. I mean,
It
because sometimes they
shows up.
wonder what else you're, pulling over,
Yes.
right? So,
Yeah, right. And it goes to, I mean, we talk about Kris Jenner being, she's a master marketer, right? But a part of this is it's not that it's fake or inauthentic, right? But we live in a world where that matters. But if how your resume, your LinkedIn, your what's Googleable about you, because we do
right,
Google our candidates, if all of that shares and goes to your point about that consistent narrative, that this is somebody that's professional, they're prepared, they're going to show up, and I want them in my organization to help it grow and shine and evolve. That's what's going to land top talent a job, because that's really what it is. A lot of places will invest in you, but right now, you'd be surprised when we talk to clients, they want somebody with gravitas, and that means you can talk to others. I can put you out as an external face, or there are people internal that I want them to respect you.
Right.
That's what employers want to see. So to the extent that you can just sit down and just ask a friend, hey, how does my LinkedIn look, right? Or if I send people your way and say, do you need to retool your resume? Because that's your calling card. I mean, nobody does business cards anymore. But
Right.
to the extent that all of that weaves and tells a story about you, that can help the recruiter, that can help the company that you want, that you aspire to be at. They know what they're getting. I know that sounds so simplistic, but they know they're getting a winner.
No, but I think you also have to make yourself like getting a referral in an
Hmm.
organization,
Hmm.
somebody's expending political capital, right? Period,
Yes.
end of story. And the more you can make them excited to do so, and there's
Hmm.
no hesitation, there's no stomach drop when they hit send
Hmm.
because you look the part, and
Yes.
you're emulating what wants to be seen, what's needed in the organization. Like this isn't a vanity play, it's a
Hmm.
professionalism and meeting what they need play, right? So if you have all that,
Hmm.
they're going to be more enthusiastic to make that referral, as opposed to their stomach sinking, like, oh God, I gotta send this. If not, they're gonna be, what are they gonna say to me? But I don't want them to be mad at me that I sent it, or like it's a reflection. So you have to make it easy for people. Um, but with that said, what are some negative ways to seek a referral? Or what are some of the, like, there's some times it doesn't work, right? Or
Being
it's not done
desperate.
well, right? When it's not strategic. Like we were talking about this during the prep. Like I would love what you brought up about it. So I was hoping you could share it here.
Being desperate. And hey, please don't take this as the wrong blow, but life confronts us all, right?
Amen. Nobody's any
You can
different.
all get in a job or a situation that wasn't what you knew was going to be on the front end, and you're here, right? But you've got to put on your pants and do the work, as they said on GMA this morning. You've got to put that back and just say, if I want to move to something better and a better version of myself, I can't I can't go around desperate, and that means I'm looking for a job, right? I mean, unless you're just literally, you're laid off. And that's not a bad thing. That's a situational thing. But you've got to push past that because I do talk to people that are laid off. But what I'm trying to say is desperation shows, and it's fear-based and it's more survival. People want to work with people that have a sense of duty and responsibility, and they're happy with what they do. That's where I'm
Hmm.
getting at. So
Yeah.
even if you're unhappy in your current space, and we've all been there, that's not
Yeah.
where I'm going. You have to then show up strategically and with mature intentionality. And that means saying, I want out of this job, or I want something better. I deserve more money. It's really, let me sit down and do the work around how I got here, what I'm learning, what this current place has taught me, but
Hmm.
even just putting down what's better and next for me. So the best people, the best way to get a job is have a job, but also the best way is to look happy in that job. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean you are being inauthentic, but that you because that's what people are going to hire. You're going to bring that same energy to wherever you go. So I
Right.
think that that's important for people to really hone in on what they want to do. And it goes back to my comment about being self-aware, not just showing up saying, I just got to get a job, because your network will hear that. And what they're hearing is Hope is unhappy and I can't make her happy. But if I say, oh, well,
That is definitely a
hey,
responsibility you don't want to put on somebody.
yeah, that's too much. But if you're showing to say, hey, I've mastered this at my current role, I'm looking to grow here. I've done this leadership class, or I've done this big project. When your network hears that, when the world or universes that
Right.
people say, when they hear that, that's when you move forward. And I think that, so it's not to be hokey and say mindset, but it really is.
Yeah.
I've invested in myself. I've been intentional about my career. That shows up a little different than, like I said, when I do a screening and somebody, I can just tell they're just, oh, is this job going to give me more money?
Right.
Or I just want
I
out of a bad situation.
I mean, I
Um,
always tell people that
mhm.
more money, that novelty is going to wear off in 3, 4 months.
Yes.
And then you're addicted to the more money in an environment that you don't like, which is frankly my
Yes.
definition of hell, you know?
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
what about like, I mean, and this is less about being a third party recruiter and just being a recruiter, doing a job search in general. But, when people are asking for referrals,
Hmm.
there's a right way and a wrong way, right? And
Hmm.
I love how you always talk about being strategic and mindful. Like, what are some of the right ways, but even more importantly, because I think it's sometimes better to point out what we're doing wrong, what are some of the wrong ways of going about asking for a referral?
Not reading the room, right? Not knowing who you're asking the referral from and why, right?
Yeah,
So,
like that's a big one when you say that. Yeah, like not all referrals are equal.
yeah. And it's really a judgment and discernment, right?
Hmm.
You can't go and ask everything of everyone, right? So you've got to go back and say, well, what do I want? What do I want to benefit, right? What's going to
Hmm.
get me closer to my goal? I think people don't like name droppers. They don't want to be perceived as social climber, but nobody's going to save you but you at the end of the day. So how do I go back and make sure that I show up in a way that doesn't offend people? And I think that that's the Southern politeness or maybe how it's raised coming up. But that's really your goal, right? So that you make so like you said, you're not putting a burden on anyone and it's strategic. So do I need to tailor my ask? Rather than asking for a job, do can I ask for coffee? Or rather than saying, Hope, I want to be, or Lisa, place me or make magic happen, can I sit down and have 5 to 10 minutes of your time, and this is what I want to do. So I guess that's the strategy part,
Yeah,
but really making sure that your ask is reasonable and tailored to the right audience. And so that goes back to being self-aware and really being picking up on the social cues of the timing, right? If somebody's a good friend, um, oh, to approach somebody cold.
yeah,
Um, it happens all the time, and I guess you'll be able to get that. Sometimes you just have to do it, right? Say hi. I know you through this person, or I had the pleasure of seeing you speak here, and this sometimes it's just the hello, right? That may get you, or you can follow up strategically. Sometimes you can't get everything in the moment and for the ask, but if it's hi, Lisa, I see you in person. And then I can follow up with the email. I can follow up with the LinkedIn connection.
hmm,
That is also being open versus then, hi Lisa, I want us to go out for an hour and I just met you 2 seconds ago, right? To get coffee or my treat. I think those are just, I mean, we're lawyers, we're social, everybody gets that, but you just want to make sure that it lands. And I say how it lands, I'm saying a lot, I'm saying nothing. You want to just make sure when you shoot your shot, you're doing it that it will just give, minimal negative press play, right?
yeah.
And
I
that's
mean, I
really what
think the
you want to
key
do.
here, and somebody asked me this yesterday, like,
Hmm.
in a LinkedIn message, like, what's the best way to get a recruiter to respond to me? Quite literally, somebody asked me the same thing that Melissa just asked in the
I
chat.
saw that cold. Yeah.
And there's no one way.
Hmm.
Like if you're on LinkedIn a lot, maybe sending
Hmm.
you a message is the way to go. I know a lot of recruiters that don't use LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and which sounds crazy, but they use other tools and they do more, more cold outreach and networking and harvesting from their existing networks, and they don't use LinkedIn very much. So those recruiters, if you're reaching out to them, they're going to never answer you, but it's not personal because they never saw it. So there's no one way. It
That's right.
really
Switch it up.
custom is the only way. Like you have to look at people's profiles, look at their bios, look at their backgrounds,
Hmm.
take a minute to see how you can digest something that's leverageable, as a
Hmm.
conversation or an interest point.
Hmm.
That's the thing. There's no magic elixir. If I
And then
had it,
switch it up. Switch it up.
if we had it, we'd be
Switch it
doing a
up,
different
Lisa.
business, right?
If I keep knocking at your door and you don't answer, I've got to move on, right? That
Right.
doesn't mean I
Or
can't
try
circle
the,
back.
granted,
Yeah.
this is not the best analogy. I'd say try the back door, but then you might get arrested. So like,
Yeah, no.
but like you have to try different tools. Like somebody,
Yes,
they don't
yes.
answer on LinkedIn, you might have to look up their email address.
Mhm.
Maybe they're on, Instagram if that's appropriate based on the industry and position. I know we're talking legal, but just in general, like they might be active on X, like who knows, right? So like you got to meet them where they are, and you may have to try more than once.
Yes.
And that's the thing there. This is a sales process.
Hmm.
right? It's a sales process. And
Mhm.
if you're not getting the response, it's just, especially with a third party recruiter, it's not a rejection. It's just they may not have something for you. So you might win the conversation, but then it's going to go nowhere. And then you're going to read into that. It's
That's
like, but if
true.
they don't have something, that's why they don't want to talk to you in the first place, right? So just you
Yes.
put the outreach out and you just focus on who's responding as opposed to wondering why those that aren't. Um, I think that and it's the same, I think, with your like reading the room, like maybe instead of asking somebody for a referral, ask them what's the best way to approach their company.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because they may not have the political capital to refer you, or they may think they do. This is worse. They may think they do, make the
Get me
referral,
in trouble.
and they're not viewed favorably, but that's who you just went through
Mhm.
referral, right? So like,
Yes.
and now your candidacy is shrouded and you didn't even know it, and they don't even know it. And then you're going to wonder why, right? So like,
That's true.
the key is to ask be careful what you ask for, right? Because you might get it and then that's
Mhm.
not necessarily what you want, but you got to be able to, like you say, strategic
Mhm.
discernment,
Mhm.
take a minute, take a breather, you know,
Mhm.
um, it sounds counterintuitive when you want to move forward to step back, but sometimes you got to step back. Um, there's a question here. Would you mind sharing stats
Yes.
about third-party recruiter placement versus direct? You
Mhm.
know, 60 to 65% of hires happen through networking.
That's right.
20 to 25% of hires happen through job postings, and 10 to 15% of hires happen through third-party recruiters. Hope just shared
Mhm.
earlier that a recent search that they did of the candidates they spoke to, only 1% made it to the second round. So, third party recruiters in general, you look at all the candidates they talk to throughout the year,
Mhm.
a very good recruiter is making one or two placements, executive recruiters making one or two placements a month, right? I mean, would you
Yes.
say that?
Yes. Yes.
So, I
Yes.
mean, that's at max. If you're doing two
Yes.
a month, that's 24 candidates a year that you are placing.
Yes. Yes.
How many are you talking to?
Hundreds, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
you're outreach, right? And so
So
that's
you
yeah,
cannot you cannot put all the eggs
in
in
one
the hope,
basket.
in the hope basket.
Yes.
You
Yes.
cannot,
Yes.
or
Yes.
the people like Hope Basket. You have to do the networking and
Yes.
some job postings, but even that's
Mhm.
selective, and you need to do activities from every bucket.
Yes.
You
Yes.
cannot do activities from any one bucket, but it really should be the majority of your efforts being networking to create your own opportunity.
And back to your point about what you said, you can try to reach that recruiter. You don't want to be stalkerish, but that recruiter may not have something for you, but you can speak to another recruiter who may not be able to place you. But if they can give you a gem, Lisa, sometimes that helps. Sometimes I help people that I know I can't place, right? I'm helpful. And I say maybe retool your resume, maybe make sure your LinkedIn, your skill sets are really shown so that the right recruiter, and that means the right thing, finds you. To me, that's just as valuable as you applying to a job that you weren't going to ever get, right? But somebody took their time and they just really helped you fine tune and tailor your approach about how you are showing up in the market. And I think that goes back to when you first asked the first question. We started with the market, right? There's you, your aspirations and your dreams. There's employers, employees, and there's a third character, the market. And that drives all the what we do. But how you can show up, how you can best position yourself, or sometimes it's not your time to move. Sometimes your job is good and you're happy. I talk to a lot of people that are just happy too, and that's a part of their narrative. But to the extent if something better or just exciting came along, they would move.
They want to
And
know.
that's really what you're doing as a career professional. You're doing good work and you're going and growing as the opportunities come. But how you respond and how you get surgical and strategical when you get the curveballs of the nose, or this, I didn't get this referral that I want. That's what builds resilience and muscle. And those
Mhm.
are the people that people want to hire because no job is going to be easy, but how you can show up in that experience, that talent, and your credentials are always going to make you a better
And I always recommend to candidates, because it's just as you
Mhm.
mentioned, recruiters are sometimes helpful, even if they can't
Mhm.
place you.
Yes.
Candidates can do the same thing. If you listen to
Yeah.
the job and it's not right for you,
Yes.
make introductions.
Yes.
Because I'm
Yes.
going to tell you, if you make quality introductions to a third
Mhm.
party recruiter,
Mhm.
they're going to take your call,
Yes.
down the line. If you've been
Yes.
helpful, right? It sounds crass, but
Hmm.
that's just work. That's a working relationship and that's life. If
Yes.
somebody's helping you and going through the efforts of helping you and gives you an introduction to somebody that you ultimately place,
Hmm.
knowing you are who you are, and not every recruiter is like this, but most of them are because they know where their bread's buttered. If
Yes.
somebody's giving them good referrals to people that are not readily available in the marketplace,
Hmm.
they're going to take their call. Or
That's
when they
right.
need help, they're going to maybe give them help, even if they can't place them, but give them the 30 minutes or the hour or whatever the case may be. And you're also subliminally coming across like a business savvy diagnostic person. You're not
Yes.
just like, what is it for me? Is it good for me? Like, if
Transactional,
you,
right?
right, exactly. So
Reciprocal.
you
Yes.
have
Yes.
to be able to say, like, all right, that's not for me, right? Self-aware, reading the
Hmm.
room, but I
Hmm.
know possibly two people. Let me give them a call, see if they're open to your call, make the
Hmm.
call. Now, those people are grateful that they thought of that person. And
Hmm.
then you get an introduction possibly to somebody who's more suitable based on what they learned. And I think that's what a lot of people can benefit from if they view themselves as a possible resource to third-party recruiters, they're going to then be able to get more traction, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, I want to make sure people know what you do. Like if you can just
Hmm.
maybe share with us like any specific legal markets, either geographically or practice areas. Like, tell us a little bit about what your focus is, and then, we'll close
Right.
out. Obviously, if anyone is reaching out to Hope today, I want to be super clear. Her job is not to place you. Her
I
job is to
love
find
it. I
talent
love
for her
meeting
company
people.
clients. So,
I
and
find I
although she
find
is
talent.
probably the nicest recruiter I've ever met,
Oh,
but
you're too
let's
kind.
make sure we don't abuse that.
No, I'm nice because
You're
hey,
lovely.
that
You're
life
always so lovely.
experience looking for a job is not easy, right? And
No,
I
you're
and
you're so
it
right.
can't save the world, but to the extent that you can help people show up with just a little bit more calmness and ease, that's a superpower. So how we're working, we have strategic searches that clients will hire us.
Hmm.
And as you know, there's some degree of risk, there's some buffer that the client wants to help them, or they really need someone specialized, or there's a geographic factor. So they will hire us to help them go and find tap talent. We are thought partners. We are not the ultimate decision makers, but we are able to find very qualified and top candidates, talk to them about their goals, learn a
Hmm.
little bit about them so that the client has some ease about, okay, well, this is this person, and Hope has had good conversation with them. This is what she can tell me
Hmm.
about them. And from there, we're like matchmakers. We just bring the top talent to the clients, and they're able to have that conversation and make decisions. When I did more partner work, those were for people who had practiced in the law firm space, had built their book of business, and they were looking to find a better platform. And to your
Hmm.
point, Lisa, it's not always more money. It's just where's the culture, which is elusive, but what's the platform where I'm going to be supported? I have more support or more resources for marketing or associate support, where
Right.
I have this practice that can thrive. And so we're career navigators. And to the extent that we can't place you directly, I do know that a lot of my colleagues, we just sit down and we talk to people, and it's not just to be transactional, but it's also to your point about planting seeds. And I do believe in that because
I
when
agree.
you can help someone else's career, you're really helping yours. And so that's really what we do in a nutshell. So right now, I'm engaged in some searches that span from Wisconsin all the way to Texas, and so I talk to top talent every day, and it's really excited. That what I enjoy most is just coaching people to the second round, because by then they know this is a job that they're interested in, and I get excited with top talent because they just don't want to land the job; they really want to do well in it, and so that has been what gives me joy.
That's why companies come to you. It's awesome.
Yes,
Well, thank
yes,
you so much for being with us today. I thank all of you for being with us today. Thank you, Krista,
yes,
for always keeping the wheels moving. And
yes.
we will put this out as a recording as soon as it's ready. Krista put some information into the chat of, connecting with Hope and exploring with us if you'd like some more additional help with your search. Um, definitely keep registered for the next one. Go to executivecareerchat.com and you'll be able to make sure you're registered for the next one soon. And we will be having a job search webinar on, I want to say September 23rd. I probably should have been more prepared for that, but we're always here. So just reach out to us, find me on LinkedIn, find Hope on LinkedIn, and thanks for being here. Thank you again so much, Hope. This was great.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. You're the best.